Hey guys, welcome back. You're sitting on the Big Game Hunters podcast, exclusive to the hashtag MagnaOnAir digital network. Landon Hood's in the studio today. Rory's in the studio today. We're bringing you a hot topic. We're talking about the pros and cons of working in Canada versus working in the US. What it's like to get a job in Canada, what it's like to get a job in the US, and really, who's favorable? Who's more favorable?
Yeah.
Is it the US? Is it Canada?
I mean, obviously,
what are your thoughts, Landon?
Obviously, people have this big idea of, we're the little brother. We're based in Canada, and we're the little guy working in the US. There's bigger business, bigger companies, more opportunity, everything like that. And we often, we work in the recruitment business. We're often asked, what's it like working up there? Are you riding a polar bear to work? Are you working within an igloo or just outside?
Can you get me a job up there?
That sort of thing. So yeah,
Down there.
But oftentimes Canadians have a view of the US. Are they working? They're working so hard? Do they get rewarded for their work? Do they get any benefits whatsoever?
What do they do all day?
Exactly. What do they do all day? Are they just, they're waving the flag all day? There's all these misconceptions about working in the Canada versus working in the US. So we thought it'd be good to sort of break down things like the culture of working there, the opportunity for growth. What do the benefits look like? What do the salaries look like? Or if you're a young professional versus if you have a family, where do the opportunities lie and what's a better fit for you? Now, obviously, you don't necessarily have the choice. If you're living in Canada and you want to work in the US as a salesperson, it's tough.
Yep.
If you're a doctor, it's a lot easier. But it's good to just know, sort of what are the differences. And if I'm in US, am I missing out on a lot of stuff up in the Great White North? And if I'm in Canada, am I missing out on a lot of stuff great down there in the
down
US?
south, yeah.
Uncle Sam.
Yeah, like I said, great points you bring up there, Landon. But I think the key thing is you look at salaries. Let's talk about salaries first. You look at salaries in the United States. I find that, you read statistics online, you see all of these different things, they talk about it being comparable to Canada. I think in the US, typically they pay more money.
Yeah.
If you're in San Francisco, if you're in San Diego, if you're anywhere down the West Coast, or even like Boston, Chicago, where it's absolutely blowing up and booming right now, even down in New York, like the salaries are just so much higher for the level of talent.
Yeah,
that companies
the big hubs, for sure.
The big hubs that are looking to employ, and it's slowly mushrooming its way out, right?
Absolutely.
You see the job offers that we're seeing from the United States to Canada is just so much more higher. Same responsibilities, same amount of work, but higher compensation.
Yeah.
Right?
And the peaks are higher and lower in the US. If you go out into the middle of nowhere in like Nevada, for instance, the salaries are lower.
Yeah.
But if you go out to the high, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, the salaries are quite higher. So there's a sort of a higher peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. But overall, the salaries are pretty even between US and Canada. But in the hubs, where all the young professionals go, it's definitely higher in the US, and that's not even taking into account the dollar difference.
And when they talk about commissions when it comes to say a sales job, or they talk about a salary, I've often found that often companies in the United States will pay just a higher salary and less on commission. Like I see this in so many different job offers that I work on, is that you often see a really solid salary, lot less on commission. Then when you come to Canada, it's a lot more driven on commission.
Absolutely.
A lot more driven on work and results.
Yeah, and you're working in a market that has obviously more dollars flowing in and out of it, so those commission opportunities are great as well. Mm-hmm. That's definitely the case in terms of earnings potential. Obviously, it's really high in the US. But when you look at benefits, when you look at retirement packages, when you look at health benefits, obviously there's
maternity leaves.
Everybody knows that Canada has universal health care, and the US has Obamacare, which is just starting to come into fruition. And there's it's very
cost a fortune.
We're not going to get into that today, but overall, when you look at the health benefits, of course, Canada does come up on the higher end. Universal health care, medical, dental.
Well, the first thing we hear all the time, right, Landon, from some US people is like, oh, you have great benefits up there, right?
Exactly.
Oh, you get injured up there, you go snowboarding, you break a leg, whatever,
you're rich.
straight to the hospital, you're rich, you're saving money, right? In the US, you kind of get dinged for it if you don't have a solid benefits package from your employees. So definitely the benefits, the salaries,
and then also, things like maternity leave, and like we didn't even know this until a couple of years ago, but maternity leave is not guaranteed in the U.S. There's no mandate that says that you get anything. Whereas in Canada, you're guaranteed at least 17 weeks. Oftentimes, it's 52 weeks of maternity leave.
Yeah,
paternity leave is a thing in Canada, whereas in the U.S., it's kind of like that's not a thing.
Unheard of.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely one thing to take into consideration as well. And then there's retirements. RSP matching, pension plans. These are things that are probably a little bit more common up in Canada than the U.S.
You see a lot of RSP plans out in Canada. You don't quite see them quite as often in the United States. Well, there's the 401k. There's different contributions. The contributions are typically, I think, 3 to 4% US. In Canada, sometimes you see them, 6 to 8%. right, from an employer matching contribution plan. But the key thing that I've noticed is definitely when it comes to like the vacation time. Right, it's critical. Like in Canada, they just give away vacation. You're looking at 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Some people have 7 weeks vacation. Like in the United States,
European.
If you're at a VP, even director level, you're lucky to get 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks.
Yeah, you work 20 years and you get that extra
20 years and you get that extra week. It's like they just want you to work.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's one thing to take into consideration. And then higher taxes, obviously in Canada, with all these benefits come, the Queen with her hand out looking for a little bit of extra money. So when you look at your overall earnings, you're taking a hit in terms of paying higher taxes. And obviously different states have different policies. In California, you're getting dinged pretty hard versus a state like Texas or Florida. But that's one thing to take into account overall with Canada, is that from what you actually take in is a lot less. And when we talk about your salaries are lower and your cost of living is higher, your earnings potential overall, I think in Canada is going to be lower. But it's not as big of a market. It makes sense. But if you have a family, if you're planning on raising a family, if you have any health concerns, any health issues, Canada's a great place to be, because you're covered, you're protected, you're a lot safer, you're a lot less prone to anything that goes wrong. But again, the earnings potential is tough. So if you're a young professional, feels invincible, feels like they're not planning.
Who needs benefits?
Not exactly. Who needs benefits? Who needs wants the higher earning potential? Is willing to put themselves out there and risk? Honestly, the U.S. can be a better situation for you. But also, it always boils down to
There's always the pros. There's always the cons of between working in the U.S., having a job in the U.S. versus having a job in Canada.
And you and Mike, I think, are going to talk a lot about sort of the day-to-day of what it's like to actually at being a worker in the U.S. and work in Canada. What the expectations are. What a work looks like. Where you can go. What are the growth opportunities? Upward mobility. All of that, because that's one thing. Sure, it might be higher earnings potential, and you might get lesser benefits, whatever it is. But really, it's a cultural thing as well. Like, would you want to work in the U.S. as a Canadian? Would you want to work in Canada?
What's going to work for you, right? Especially, if you're an applicant, if you're on the market, if you're looking for work, if you're currently employed, there's certain things as a candidate that you can negotiate prior to accepting a job offer or moving to that next stage in your career development. In Canada, you can always try and get your benefits package waived, and you can always try and maximize the amount of vacation that you're looking for. If it's at 3 weeks, 2 weeks, try and get that to 3-4 weeks, or even try and get like a higher commission structure. Sometimes when it comes to the base salary, it's oftentimes really hard to get. And also what you'll see in Canada too as well is that there's not that much option to work from home comparable to the United States. And definitely, oftentimes, very rarely, but you'll sometimes see Canadian employers offering some sort of a signing bonus. But when it comes to the US,
it's much more common in the US, and that's something to always take into account in any industry. Really, is if you're not quite happy with the salary, but they've told you, we can't have movement on this because they're budgeted for the year. Talk about a signing bonus. It's much more common in the States to be willing to throw out, an extra $10,000, whatever it is, $5,000, $20,000 signing bonuses. We see this all the time.
$40,000.
And so that's something to always take into consideration as a professional is look at that. Vacation flexibility, not so much. Benefits flexibility, not so much. But those signing bonuses. And we also find that, with the bigger business, you can negotiate salaries a lot more. There's probably more flexibility in terms of negotiating salary in the U.S. than versus Canada.
Absolutely. I hope this show helped. You're sitting on the big game hunters. We're going to be bringing you segment 2 shortly. Stay tuned. Landon Hood, Rory McMillan, coming to you. That's us.